Many think of Delaware as a boring US state with nothing but corporate buildings and Joe Biden. Surely it must be devoid of any wildlife, but what if I told you that is not the case? Because hidden in this state is an oasis for wildlife, and hardly anyone knows of its existence. But today we will be exploring it. Bombay Hook and Prime Hook National Wildlife Refuge get most of the attention. However, today we will be looking at an underrated salt marsh in the Gordon's Pond area of Cape Henlopen State Park. Unlike most salt marshes in the state, it is not along the Delaware Bay, but the Atlantic Ocean. Historically, its water would have emptied into the Rehoboth Bay via the Rehoboth Creek, which no longer exists. Today, it empties into the man-made Lewes Rehoboth Canal. Unsurprisingly, the largest body of water in the Gordon's Pond area is Gordon's Pond itself. This is a lagoon containing brackish water, and it is home to schools of killfish species. Those schools also contain other fish, like Atlantic silversides. Gordon's Pond also contains Atlantic blue crabs. They are adapted to live in estuaries from Nova Scotia to Argentina. This crab must be careful because there is a snowy egret nearby. Luckily for the crab, most birds are not in Gordon's Pond right now, but out in the marsh. A lot of the most common birds here are wading birds, such as green herons, great blue herons, and of course, snowy egrets. There are also shorebirds, like this greater yellowlegs and these least sandpipers. Least sandpipers are the smallest shorebird in the world and only weigh 1 ounce. There are not only birds, but also diamondback terrapins. This is the only turtle in North America that has adapted to live exclusively in estuaries. This unique reptile is also the only known species in its genus. Diamondback terrapins are a keystone species to this ecosystem because they eat crabs and snails. Without the terrapins, those invertebrates would damage the plants of this salt marsh. Even further out into the marsh, we have ourselves another bird, a black-necked stilt. They are one of about 5 stilt species, and are the only one native to North America. Black-necked stilts often wade in shallow water, where they feed on aquatic invertebrates and fish. Also, I am definitely not reusing clips from a previous video. Apparently, these guys like scaring away birds, just like how little children love chasing flocks of geese. One would think that they would leave this glossy ibis alone, but black-necked stilts are bold. But to be fair, ibises are pretty cowardly. Just look at this one. The marsh also provides a home for songbirds, such as this eastern kingbird. Another songbird that lives here right now is the barn swallow. It is the most widely distributed swallow species in the world and can be found on every continent except for Antarctica. Red-winged blackbirds are also very common in just about any North American marsh. Speaking of common, a common plant in the Gordon's Pond area is the head's bindweed. Now, let's go back to the mudflats to see another species essential to this ecosystem. We are talking about Atlantic marsh fiddler crabs. They are essential in that they create complex burrows that send oxygen to the roots of salt marsh grasses. Males have disproportionately large claws that can either be on their left or right side, while the females just have two little claws. They use their little claws to feed on organic material from mud. Meanwhile, the guys use their one big claw to attract females or to scare away other males. It is also worth mentioning that out of the 108 recognized fiddler crab species, this one can be found the furthest north. The salt marsh environment in the Gordon's Pond area is actually new. Believe it or not, this used to be a freshwater marsh. Locals digging canals to harvest salt during the 1800s, along with rising sea levels, are what caused this place's salinity to increase. These endangered spotted turtles are likely a remnant of when the Gordon's Pond area was fresh. They share their little pond with what are most likely mummitsugs, which are another killfish species. There is also one larger fish here, but it is in an osprey's talons. It is an Atlantic menhaden, and it is still alive. Ospreys possess barbed pads on the bottom of their feet that help them get a good grip on slippery fish. A little further north is the edge of a maritime pine forest, full of insects, such as this American lady butterfly. Meanwhile, this wasp is fighting an ant. And this wasp is digging a hole like a good boy. Of course, not only insects live in this forest, but also pine warblers. Unsurprisingly, this species lives mainly in pine forests in eastern North America. Unlike most other warblers, they spend the winter only in the southeastern continental United States. Also, most warblers are predatory, but this one eats a lot of seeds, mainly pine seeds. Because of that, they sometimes visit people's bird feeders, which does not sound unusual, but it is for a warbler. Another pine-dwelling bird that calls this forest home is the brown-headed nuthatch. Closer to the ground, you are likely to find lizards, more specifically eastern fence lizards. Like many other lizards, they can drop their tail to survive an attack from a predator. This lizard belongs to a genus of over 100 species, but the eastern fence lizard is the only one of them that can be found east of the Mississippi River. Even though we are deep into the forest, there are two blue grosbeaks, a female and a male. They usually prefer open areas. This is not a blue grosbeak, but an indigo bunting, which is closely related. There too are Carolina chickadees. They are among the world's smallest chickadee species. And of course, there are plenty of eastern gray squirrels here. Now we are moving to the south, back towards Gordon's Pond. There are even more animals along the way. At this point, you know that the Gordon's Pond area has changed a lot over the last few centuries. One of those changes I have not mentioned yet is this is actually not the original Gordon's Pond. The original was located further south and got destroyed during the making of the Lewes-Rehoboth Canal. The name was simply transferred after this one's creation. Back in the marsh, there are some great egrets, along with the two black-necked stilts from earlier. The one with a black back is male, and the female has a dark brown back. They are probably a pair that has a nest nearby. That likely explains why they were so aggressive to the other birds. Unfortunately, a large flock of birds have flown in to disturb our black-necked stilts. It is made up of mainly snowy egrets and American white ibises. Oh no, not ibises again. Of course, they are here to feed, because why else would they be here? However, a laughing gull decided to scare away an immature tricolored heron, which caused all of the other birds to get scared and fly away. But the thing is, they are all flying in a circle. After they were done, they all landed back where they started. Who knows, maybe it's the black-necked stilts. Maybe they caused the ibises and their friends to be scared of just about everything. And then the birds decided to take off again, only to fly in another circle, only to land in their previous positions again. But that is not all. They all got scared a third time. This is probably just an endless loop that has been occurring all day, but this behavior is the only thing that keeps these vulnerable birds safe. Again, ibises are cowards. If you actually want to see something tough, then watch this bald eagle. It is fighting an osprey over a fish, which the bald eagle probably stole from the osprey. Now let's end this day with some adorable eastern cottontail rabbits. The next day seems normal at first, until you run into a tree full of white birds. It turns out those white birds are American white ibises. They historically have not been found in Cape Henlopen State Park because they used to live further south. It is only in the last few decades that their range has been expanding northwards. Today, these goofy birds visit the Gordon's Pond area every summer. Coastal Delaware is the northernmost point of their range, for now. After watching them for a while, you cannot help but wonder, why are their beaks curved like that? Well, the answer lies in Gordon's Pond. Unlike herons that have straight beaks used to strike their prey, the curved beaks of ibises are sensitive and precise tools that are used to carefully probe the mud for little invertebrates. Since their beak is curved, when they rotate it, they can search a wider area. That's why curved beaks have evolved in many other birds that probe the mud. Most of the American white ibises we have been seeing are not completely mature, but this one is. You can tell because of its red face and black-tipped beak. Their genus is unique to the Americas, and they are one of only 2 living species that are in it, the other being the scarlet ibis. It is also worth mentioning that the extinct Hawaiian flightless ibis evolved from a species in this genus. Yeah, unfortunately, white ibises are not too friendly. This is a different pine forest than the one we saw earlier. In it, there is a downy woodpecker and a common yellowthroat. This warbler can be found in all sorts of environments across North America and was one of the first birds to be categorized in the New World. They also have a beautiful and unforgettable song. This bird may have the beak of a warbler, but is actually a sparrow, a seaside sparrow. Their thinner beak allows them to probe for insects and crustaceans in salt marshes along the east and Gulf coasts of the United States. In Gordon's Pond, there's an immature tricolored heron. It may be the same one we saw earlier in the video. The American white ibises are all still here. but this time they are joined by one lone glossy ibis. Like the white ibises, they originally did not live here, but instead of coming from the southern United States, they came all the way from Africa. They naturally expanded to northern South America during the 1800s, and from there made their way up to Delaware and beyond. So, a little over 100 years ago, there were no ibises in the Gordon's Pond area, yet today there are so many. And none of these ibises were brought here by humans, they simply came here themselves. Hiding behind the flock of American white ibises is yet another bird, a tricolored heron, but this time a mature one. This species is in the genus Egrita, which also contains the snowy egret, so an argument can be made that they are not herons but egrets. They also prefer brackish and saltwater environments over freshwater ones, so in the past they probably did not live here. In the same tree that the tricolored heron is in are boat-tailed grackles. A lot of them have flown down to Gordon's Pond to feed. The last animals we will see today live around that pond we saw earlier. Normally they are hiding, but the rain has brought them out. They are American green tree frogs. They look like exotic pets that escaped their enclosures, yet in reality they are native and wild here in southern Delaware. As beautiful as the Gordon's Pond area is today, I can only imagine how spectacular it must have been back when the entire area was fresh, just as this little pond is today. The salt marsh environment is only a century old here, yet there are so many species. Imagine how many more species there must have been when this area was fresh for thousands of years. But the Gordon's Pond area is still amazing, and as long as it is preserved, Delaware will never be a boring state. As always, thank you for watching this video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Subscribe if you haven't already, and have a great day.